Hey guys. Okay, so I just spent a very cold, probably 20 minutes outside in a cold blowing wind. It looks nice out there, but that wind is cold. Put my necklace on. Anyway, so my hair's a mess still. Jeez. Sorry guys. I know I'm always messing with my hair. It looks really stupid. It really does. It's too. Okay, that's just gonna bug me. Anyway, um, I walked all the way out behind the barn to where the corner of our property is and figured out where I want to put the house and the greenhouse, the outdoor kitchen, our gardens. That stupid boat that's on the property is going to have to move. And I'm probably going to have to, I'm going to have to try to go through the right channels to get that off the property. Uh, yeah. Anyway, but and I did figure out where I want to put the goat and the feeder pig barn. We're going to put it down past the garden area. And I am going to use the old chicken coop. We're going to fix that up. And I will add on to that. That'll cost a building permit, but it is what it is. The duck house, I didn't figure that out yet. Um, I'm not sure how close to the house I want the ducks. So I might put them down past the goat and the feeder pig barn. Um, the guineas and the turkeys are still going in with the chickens. The rabbits and the quail are still going inside the garden center. Rabbits and the quail are not going to cost us that much. I will have to purchase the rabbit hutch and the quail coop. And I'm going to purchase them because I don't want to have to overwhelm myself with coming up with the materials to build everything. I mean, I'm already kind of overwhelmed because, we're going to be trying to come up with the materials to add on to the chicken coop and build the goat and the feeder pig barn. So, and then obviously the duck house, the smokehouse. I didn't figure out where I'm gonna put that yet, but it was kind of out there earlier. Anyway, very cold out there. So, I last read out of the lasagna gardening book. And we're just going to do a slew of videos. A slew of videos. This one is going to be out of Lost Superfoods. I just hit myself in the face. And the next one is how to make bark bread. So here we go. And I will do a video, maybe I'll just look up a picture of this. Nah. So there's that. That's a picture on the other opposite page. So how to make bark bread. Man, it's gonna drive me crazy. Bandit, no. I don't know where you are, but no. You're not going out there. And don't you dare. Modern baker's yeast, as we know it today, did not exist until the late 1800s. Even when it became available, it was usually too expensive for most of the population, and that's why we preferred to make their own. And that's why they preferred to make their own. Housewives and bakers used different types of wild yeast or massive amounts of eggs to leaven the bread. Homemade yeast could be made through various ways, like using hops, potatoes, or a flour, water, sugar mix. It could also be made from distillery barn yeast or a sourdough starter. Unlike modern day yeast, the homemade type made with sourdough starter takes a longer time to rise. It usually takes 12 to 18 hours during the summer and 18 to 24 hours during the winter. Another difference between modern day bread and traditional bread is that the former uses more additives, while the latter is as organic as it can get. Our ancestors passed on heirloom varieties of wheat to us, the most common being a blend of organic spelt, einkorn, and barley. And I want to get some of that einkorn wheat flour. Aside from making their own bread, people from the early 1800s used to plant and harvest their own wheat. The best time to plant winter wheat is during the fall to allow for 6 to 8 weeks of growth before the soil freezes. This also ensures proper root development. Planting the wheat too early makes it vulnerable to summertime insects and smothering during spring. If it is planted too late, the wheat will not overwinter well. On the other hand, spring wheat should be planted as early as the ground can be worked in the spring. To grow quality wheat, here are the steps to follow. Make sure you do the initial plowing in the fall. Till and sow in the spring. An evenly distributed crop is achieved when seeds are divided into 2 parts, one part planted from east to west and the other from north to south. It can also be planted in rows. Cover the seeds by raking the soil over them. For best results, firm the bed to make good seed-soil contact. Bandit! No! Don't you dare. I know what you're going to do. No. Through constant care and attention, your wheat will grow. And you'll notice that the stalks will turn from green to yellow to brown. Once the heads are heavy with grain that pulls the top toward the earth, that's when you should harvest. To make sure that your wheat is ready for the kitchen, test out a few grains by eating them. If it's anything less than firm and crunchy, the wheat is not yet ready. Once you've harvested your wheat, you can convert it into flour by grinding it using a hand crank grinder or a wheat grinder. If you don't have one of those, you can always go back to the most basic way of grinding wheat, which is to use stones or hand grinding. It may take a lot of effort and time, but the advantage is that you can control what the texture of the resulting flour will be. How to make sourdough starter. Now that you have your flour, it's time to talk about the rising agent that most homemade bread used in the early 1800s, sourdough starter. Ingredients: a jar or container with preferably wide-mouthed openings, filtered or spring water, don't use tap water, flour, cheesecloth to cover the jar. Method 1. Pour 1/2 cup of water and add 1/2 cup of flour into your jar. Mix thoroughly until it feels like... Dang it, Bandit! You get... Ugh. Get down! No! Can't hold him and breathe at the same time. Do you guys do the video at the same time? Not like that. Alright. Mix thoroughly until it feels like thick pancake batter. Cover your jar with cheesecloth. Leave the mixture on your counter for 24 hours at the most. Feed the starter by giving it 1/2 cup of flour and 1/2 cup of water. It needs to reach the proper consistency. By now, the starch should have a few bubbles. No, honey, I can't hold you while I'm trying to do this. That's showing right there. Stir and cover again. The next day, the starter should have more bubbles and the top should look almost foam-like. Feed it again like before and repeat step 6. Make sure to feed your starter every 24 hours. Once you notice there is a constant rise of bubbles, it might be ready for baking. Bandit! No! Don't you dare come over onto my computer. Alright, how to make tasty bread like in 1869. Now that you have both the flour and the sourdough starter as the rising agent, you can go ahead and make a completely homemade bread. The most common recipe that our great-grandmothers based their delicious bread on is 1 coffee cup of flour, 2 coffee cups of graham flour, 1 coffee cup of warm water, a half coffee cup of yeast, a little molasses, a teaspoon of salt, and half a teaspoon of soda dissolved in the water. Let it rise overnight and bake about an hour in a moderate oven. This quantity makes 1 loaf. This recipe is from Mrs. Winslow's Domestic Receipt Book from 1869. A more modern adaptation of the recipe is the following. Ingredients: 2 cups of flour, 1 cup of warm water, half of the sourdough starter, 2 tablespoons of molasses or whole cane sugar. Bandit! Wet! Really? Knock it off. Two tablespoons of molasses or whole cane sugar. 1 teaspoon of salt. Now, sea salt, I would use Redmond's real salt. Optional, half teaspoon of baking soda. Sorry. Ugh. Method 2. Mix flour and salt in the mixing bowl. Add sourdough starter, molasses, and warm water. Stir until the dough feels wet and sticky. Optional. To remove the sour flavor in your loaf, add a half teaspoon of baking soda and mix it thoroughly. Place the dough in a greased 9x5-inch bread pan. Cover with a damp dishcloth. Really? You are such a butthead. Cat's a butthole. Cover with a damp dishcloth or tea towel with a dry towel over it and let it rise for 12 to 24 hours. Once it is risen, the dough should be light and fluffy. To make sure, press lightly on the dough. If it dents, it's ready. Bake at 350 degrees for about 40 to 45 minutes. If you don't have a timer, bake the bread until it is golden brown. Tap on the bread, and if it sounds hollow, it's ready for breakfast. Making bark bread or famine bread. Bark bread is a common form of survival food. Many would ask if tree inner bark is really edible, and the answer to that is yes, it is. It is actually a safe and nutritious wild food as long as you're using the right part of the bark from the right species of tree. The edible part of the tree bark is the cambium layer, which lies right next to the tough inner wood. Edible and safe bark can be harvested from trees, the most common being pine trees, slippery elm, black birch, yellow birch, red spruce, black spruce, balsam fir, and tamarack barks are also some of the trees with a specific bark you're going to look for. The light inner bark of a pine tree is harvested in the spring when the bark is more easily removed from the tree trunk. Another reason why it's best to harvest in the spring is because the vitamin content of the bark is highest then. Here's how you should harvest and prepare bark. Bandit, shut up. Positively identify the tree species. Take only narrow vertical portions of the bark from the tree. Shave off the gray outer bark and the greenish middle layer of the bark to get down to the rubbery white or cream-colored inner layer. Be careful not to shave too deeply. See the picture below, cut and peel off the whitish inner rubbery inner bark. And that's what that picture was of. Right there. You can eat the bark as soon as you've harvested it. You can also fry or boil it to make some bark snacks. To make the bark into flour, you only need to dry it for a day and then pound it until it turns to powder. You can use a stone for this or a mortar and mill. The result will look more like oatmeal than wheat flour. You can add the bark flour when making your breakfast bread, just like how our great-grandparents survived when they went through severe famine. Bark bread was also something that was actually part of their diet. Even during the wars in the 20th century, bark was used to add nutrition to their daily rations. Ingredients: 100 grams or 2.5 ounces of yeast, 1 quart of lukewarm water, 1 quart of rye flour, 1.5 quarts of white flour, and 1/2 cup of bark flour. Method 3. Mix all the ingredients in a bowl, stir thoroughly, set aside to rise for an hour, knead the resulting dough from the mixture, allow to rise for 45 minutes to an hour, roll out into smaller rounds. Before baking, sprinkle with water. Baking time will vary depending on the size of the bread. For medium-sized bread the size of a pita bread, bake for 10 minutes at 425 degrees. Alternatively, you can cook the bread over hot coals as long as you turn it constantly. And that was how to make bark bread. So, interesting. The next one is going to be how to make homemade bread in a can. So I'm going to go ahead and get off from here and I'll get this up there. And I'm going to be working on videos and some stuff for school. Excuse me. So, got a lot going on today, and I will see you guys in the next video. Remember, guys, check your subscriptions. Always check those subscriptions. Hit that notification bell. Click on all to make sure you get all the notifications. Like and share the videos. Share them on all your platforms. Share them with friends, family. Share them with everybody. Share them with all, like I said, on all your platforms. And remember, leave comments about the new subscriber package. All you gotta do is leave a comment and say new subscriber package and then leave your email. And I will get back to you. And the new subscriber package is a hand-painted Faith First Farm and Homestead t-shirt and a hand-painted Faith First Farm and Homestead mug. So, but you got to drop those comments. New subscriber package and then your email. So I will get back to you guys and we'll, get information from you that I need and I will get those out to you and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.